Bonjour Gad, comment vas-tu?
Ça va très bien.
Et alors, je vérifie que tout va bien. On est sur LinkedIn, sur YouTube. Très bien. Ben, content d'être ici pour un nouveau PhD. Ah, en anglais!
En
Je peux être en
anglais? On
anglais!
est en anglais. C'est pour
Mais
ça que tu me parlais en français. Je me
c'est
disais,
ça,
ok.
c'est pas grave.
So sorry
Um,
guys, we're gonna switch in English.
we're gonna switch to English. This is Montreal anyway, so it's Franglish. So
Frankly.
now let's go back to the model that we've chosen for the second lab segment of the PhD Dojo in English. The second one, Gad has brought a very interesting question today from one of the mentees of the second lab program. And Gad, I will let you tell what it is and who shared that question.
Yeah, so it's a question from Karthik. Karthik is a mentee from the program. Karthik is at the end of his PhD at McGill University. So actually, I know Karthik for a long time because we shared almost the same office. It was in the
Okay.
office near to me when I was a postdoc at McGill. But anyway, his question is when should you start to think about finding a job, or how to think about to pivot to industry? But I would
Mm-hmm.
like to say more than industry, how to think about your future, like when
Mm-hmm.
it's the right time to do it. And yeah, go
So
ahead.
so okay. So this is for humor, of course. But Gad, you told me that we could answer all of this with one word and end the episode right now. What's the word?
It's now.
Now.
Now when you start to listen this episode, when you start to at the second when you start it, it's now. So yeah, we're almost done with the episode. With
There
the
we go.
episode.
Thanks
Here we go.
everyone for watching. This was great. um, I'm just gonna take this second to tell anyone on Facebook or Twitter to meet us to come see the rest of the conversation on YouTube or on LinkedIn, which is where we are, and then we can have everyone's comments, etc., on the same platform. So I'm gonna close the feed on Facebook now here. And same thing on Twitter. If you're on Twitter, meet us on YouTube or LinkedIn and share your comments and questions with us there. And it's done. So now we're live on LinkedIn and YouTube. So let's start now. Of course, we're going to keep on talking a little bit. But I agree with you. And I've been trying to push this message now for a while of building your professional future starts now. And Karthik is in his last year of the PhD, but I would defend that this is it's kind of an exercise. It's kind of a project that should start with the day one of your PhD. Would you agree, Gad?
Yeah, it's day one of your PhD and even before. And actually, it's not a moment that you decide. It's continuously you decide to I think grow your network. That's the first thing that you should do. And as you said when we were off, it takes a long time. It takes months to years to actually. It's a continuous work to grow your network, and it's better to do it when you don't have to find a job. So because you are relaxed, you just grow your networks. You meet some people, and if you like meeting people, you enjoy it. So
Yeah.
so that's the first thing. If for my personal story, I didn't do that during my PhD. I was
Same here.
just networking with my peers in the lab or outside of the lab, or just between PhDs and between PhD candidates at the
Hmm.
university. I grew my network this way, but finally I didn't knock on the door of the industry. And that was, I think, my mistake, because when I decided to move outside of academia and not being a professor, I was just like, okay, I have to grow my network outside. How much time it takes? A long time. So So yeah, um,
I agree totally. I did the same thing, and one of the things, the reflections I had. One of the things you said, and I do agree with it, is if you are having these conversations to grow your network, and maybe get to a conversation that will lead to to a professional avenue. If you're doing it when you're like done your PhD and looking for a job, it will very probably become a very transactional conversation where you want a job and there's kind of this pressure, and
mhm.
no, you won't be simply engaging in conversation and growing relationships. You have an objective. So so I agree with you. This is why starting early, excuse me, starting early is a good way to have relaxed conversations, to get to know the people, to get to know the domain. So of course we're going to talk about informational interviews, but this is the objective, is because it's so difficult today. Things are changing so much on the side of job creators. The job you're going to actually land after your PhD might not even exist yet. The job
Mhm.
description, right? So it's much more useful to think about it as like, while I'm doing my PhD and doing this project, it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of my focus, a lot of my energy. I'll keep an ear on what's happening on the job site, be it academic or not. And how do you do that? Well, the best way is to talk with people who've done it already, and who've maybe even come from your program or from your university, and say, hey, I see you're working, I don't know, you did a PhD in neuroscience and now you're at CBC. How did that happen?
Mhm.
I like media and I'm curious about that. And that's a good way to start a conversation, that you're not looking for a job, you're not asking for a favor, you're just asking the person to tell their story. And I think that's a really good point to start a conversation, and it's a really good way to have people engage with you and be happy to share something with you.
And actually, it's very scientific procedure. I would just say like that.
Okay.
It's very scientific procedure. Like you you don't know what's going on outside of academia. You you take some information in at the second lab. We define maybe 60 to 70 positions that a PhD can do and more, because finally it's in infinite possibilities.
Hmm.
But if you target to 50 position, you cannot do everything. I mean, you cannot find out everything with these 50 positions. So the
Hmm.
first question is just like, you should figure out one, two, three positions that you would like to target. I know that most of you will be like R&D scientist or R&D kind of position, but
Hmm.
finally, sales, marketing, IP, uh, scientific
Data
communication, data
analysis.
analyst, many kind of positions, and we just cite maybe 5 to 10, but there's tons. Would be interesting for you. So just figure out what kind of position you would like to do, and ask um, informational interviews to the people that have this kind of position in industry, and you will learn more first about the position, but not only, also about what kind of company they work in. If you find that it's not for you, you made an hypothesis, the answer is wrong, and you come back
Hmm.
to another hypothesis, like, oh, maybe I will be like a medical science lesion,
Hmm.
and um, and maybe it's for me. So you can interrogate some people who has this kind of job and come back.
Yeah.
So so you grow your network at the same time. I think it's healthy and great, and you don't have to grow your network at the last minute of your PhD, where it's the time to look for a job.
Yeah.
um yeah.
Yeah,
And
and one thing that I think that I could add to this is, by having these conversations, maybe even you could get to a position, of having this conversation. Okay, I thought this might be interesting. Not really. I thought that might be interesting. There's some aspects that I don't like. Maybe it's going to be the path to you defining what your job is going to be, because you can't, people today, some people are able to approach organizations and say, here, I have this background, and I think I can offer this to your organization,
Mhm.
and there can be a new spot created for that person. And having these conversations, and I'm not saying spending 20 minutes every day talking with someone, because of course that's not going to work, but a little bit each week, a little bit each month, and maybe taking part, or being in groups where people are having conversations about this domain, and just hearing what people are saying, what terms they're using. It's just going to slowly mature this kind of professional image of yourself that you project in the future.
Yeah, and you will learn the jargon. You will learn.
There you go.
Yeah, you will learn a lot of keywords that you can put in your CV, in your LinkedIn profile. Yeah, it's very important to talk to people finally. Another thing is, if you want to go deeper with this kind of topic, is the skills. So you can imagine that when you meet somebody, you can ask the question like, what kind of skills is required for the job? So they would tell you, oh, you have to be a very collaborative person, you have to present a lot, so you come back with this informations about the skills is very important, because you can figure out that in 3 years you will leave you academia with your PhD in hands. What kind of skills you should develop in the next 3 years to target this kind of jobs? And of course, uh, a PhD is a great opportunity to develop skills. That's the reasons why we are doing all these studies, is to develop skills, but not only technical skills, but also transferable skills.
Yeah.
So you can figure out like what kind of skills would you need for that type of positions. It could be broad. Don't put a lot of pressure on yourself, and find opportunities, because PhD is full of opportunities. PhD studies, the lab research, the university environment is full of opportunities. So what kind of opportunity will help you to grow as a person and as a professional, to
and
target that
and I
kind of
want to
job.
add,
Yeah,
as a researcher,
as
because
a
we're talking about LinkedIn, and although there's now a lot of scientists on LinkedIn, a lot of researchers on LinkedIn too, but I believe that this approach of growing your network is important on the, let's say, non-academic side, but also on the academic side. Being involved in pluridisciplinary projects, having conversations with people with other departments can bring something new to your research, and also can differentiate you once you're candidate for a postdoc or something,
Mhm.
by being someone who, he's involved in different projects, he's like involved in innovation through interdisciplinary projects. And so I think this principle can be, it's safe to embark in this idea, even if you right now your mind is set on staying in academia. Plus, even if you're set on staying in academia, knowing people in industry, knowing what they do, knowing how they do it, knowing the culture, I think it's a plus too. I don't know what your point of view is, but you work in the domain of startups, and I think you could like quickly find an example of how researchers can gain by mingling with non-researchers and with industry.
Yeah, exactly. And there more and more money for innovation and moving forward, like the research to the society, what the research should do to solve problem of the society. And that's a big topic these days. um, Fundamental science is very important as well, but what also we would like that the researchers do some innovation, and there are some funds, but innovation you do that with an industrial partner. And if you already speak the jargon, if you already know the industry and what are the standards, what are all that things, will help you to find a partner. So so
Hmm.
in another way, if you want to be a professor, that's really great. Um, but if you want to collaborate with industry, it's you have to have this kind of mindset as well.
Hmm. Yeah, and so I think this kind of covers what I wanted to say, and one of the big messages for me is this is not a betrayal to research. It's
No,
you're just growing your you're just growing your profile as a candidate. You're just improving, who you are, because although yes, your PhD is your project and it's something that you are going to find on your own. In the end, once you're done, it's it's going to be important what your network is, what your village is, who you know, where it, and it's going to influence where you're going to do your postdoc. It's going to influence a bunch of things. And yeah, I don't know, Gad, whether with your mentees, if you have exercises that you do, or if you give them kind of goals of, each month talk to one person. Is there something like that you do with them?
exactly. So for informational interview, we have PhDs like procedures. So
Okay.
so like okay, step one, step two. So
Okay.
we have this kind of procedures to set up an informational interview for 20 minutes. And also like we have a session where we talk about how to set up your time to look for a job. So how to make time management.
Hmm.
And one of the advice is like block maybe 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, half a day per week
Okay.
for these kind of things: networking, going to LinkedIn, contacting people, set up meetings. And you have to block it in your agenda. It's this is my moment where I have to network and do that things.
Hmm.
Otherwise you will not do it. We have to be
Yeah.
frank together. If you don't block the hours, you will not do it. So yeah, this is what we do. And actually we the goals is not, I don't give the goal for the people. They have to set up their own goals. But we can say like, maybe I have to set up 3 information interview per month. It could be a
Okay.
goal. Or
That sounds fair.
1 interview per month, 1 interview per week. And the more you I mean, the more you go through your PhD, you can increase this number.
Hmm.
So you have a kind of routine put in place where you increase the number of information interview you would like to do.
Hmm.
So it set up the goal, and if you're too stressful with that, you can decrease the goal, can play around. So
Yeah,
that's
you
one
need to
of
be relaxed for sure.
yeah, you need to be relaxed. um I understand that people are introverts or shy.
Yes.
um
I was gonna ask you about that.
yeah, it's always yeah, it's always more difficult for other people than others. But you have to go through it. And I believe that a lot of people love introverts, like in industries, and we need every kind of people. Like it's great to have a great diversity in a company,
Hmm.
even introverts. You have to go through this way, and it paid off at the end.
It does. It does
Because
pay off.
yeah, the other thing is people people in industry or employers like people who has network.
There you go.
Yeah. So you arrive with your network, and it could to the people that you met can be your business partner when you got a job, or
Hmm.
somebody that you met for doing business. So it's better that you when you know some this person, um, rather than not.
Yeah, it's like you're part of that universe already. Even though you're very tiny, you're tiny. You're somehow part of it because you know this person, you know that person. You might even end up being able to drop a name that the person in front of you interviewing you knows, and that makes a whole difference, plus the knowing the jargon, etc., like you said.
Mm-hmm.
And even better, once you get good at it, if you're able to ask the people what the day-to-day of the job is, you can even impress them by saying, well, actually, I kind of know how the process is of doing this job.
Mm-hmm.
I've been talking with people and I really liked it, and or maybe I'd like to bring a new approach to it. So the idea is just, it's if you dive in this pool, and you kind of imbibe yourself of this culture, then it's going to be a completely different conversation than the person who sent the CV, who doesn't really know what's behind that that invisible wall, and who's kind of just hoping, pretty please, I hope to have this job, and but that does not have the vocabulary, that does not have a network, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
God, we're reaching the end of this dojo, but I kind of want to send a kind of a challenge out there. So you heard Gad, propose different ways to, and also talk about the different advantages of doing informational interviews. I'd really like, especially if you're shy about it. First, I'd really like to tell you, people, especially if they are on LinkedIn, and that's for me the platform that I recommend to do this, because people who are on there are there. They know they're going to have requests to connect, etc., and they're kind of pre-filtered for you as people who are already willing to share something. And if you do this well, if you explain why you're interested by their profile, and if you are clear about what type of questions you have for them beforehand, well, some of them might be busy and might not answer, etc. But I'm sure someone will, and will you'll have a pleasant 20 minutes hearing the person's story. So this first thing is, there's no need to be to have fear of approaching people. I think that's what the platform is there for. Second, if you're a listener, or if you're a subscriber on YouTube, and after this you're like, okay, I'm gonna connect with someone, do share that experience with us in the comments, or you can write to david@papaphd.com. I'd love to have feedback on, hey, for the first time I connected with someone that I admired for a while, and hey, they responded and it was really fun, or I hit some challenge. Whatever the experience is, we'd love to have even Gad for the second lab.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'd love also to have this type of feedback.
Yeah. This is actually, we had this conversation. That can you share a story about, because finally you go to the adventure. you contact somebody that you don't know. How would happen? So yeah, sometimes you have nice stories. Sometimes it's
sometimes it's a mismatch. It can
funny.
happen.
Yeah,
it could be funny too.
Mismatch, and everybody is awkward, So
yeah.
It's
but one thing is, don't take a no or a lack of answer personally. People can be very busy. There can be many different ways why they're either not answering or saying that they don't have the time for it. And don't take it personally, and find, there's a bunch of people out there. Just find them. One last trick for me, like tips and tricks, is go on LinkedIn, find people in the domain that interests you that come from your university, and that's already a kind of a conversation starter, and it's easy to do over there. And this way you already have kind of this, hey, you're an alumni and I'm now going to, I'm maybe following the same program, and that's a great way to kind of break the ice and start it going, and then you'll see everything will go well.
Yeah, or even ask for an introduction to somebody that you know.
Even that, yes.
Yeah. There's many ways to find people on LinkedIn and in net. I mean, everywhere, as a network. Yeah.
All right.
Great.
Gad, I think this covered what we wanted to talk about. And for you who's watching or listening, I'd like to pass the puck to you and then hear back from you once you've tried this a couple of times. And yeah, we'd love to have your feedback on how it went, on the lessons learned, and on maybe something funny that happened in the way. So thanks for having been with us on this PhD Dojo. Gad, you have a last word to thank the listeners and viewers?
Yeah, thank you everybody for listening. That we are looking forward your stories. So David and I will be glad to listen your stories. We looking forward of it.
Perfect. And if you're on YouTube, subscribe, hit the little bell. You'll never miss another dojo or another Papa PhD interview. And you're going to help me maybe reach 200 followers. I hope 200 subscribers. That'd be great. I'm almost there, but not yet. So thanks everyone, and see you on the next PhD Dojo.
See you. Bye.